there's a slight condition that you have to share them with everybody. So you can have a packet.
Okay.
You've got to share them. Does anybody else want them in? Anybody not get one? Just put your hand up. James will get round.
Yeah, James. Down here.
Okay, so it's been great, hasn't it, this morning to hear some stories about kindness. And it's always nice when we experience kindness, isn't it? People like it when people are kind to us. And today I want to draw our attention to a story in the Bible that I think shows a level of kindness through Jesus. So we know that Jesus was a very kind man, and we know that he operated in grace, and we know that he came to show God's love to everyone. There's one particular story that I think reveals just how kind Jesus was, and that can be found in John chapter 2, verses 1 to 11. So if you've got a paper Bible, you can follow along in there. If you haven't, don't worry, because it will come up on the screen. I'm very professional, and maybe myself. So, it says this. On the third day at a wedding took place in Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman," he says. No, that's not. I was looking up this, I was like, oh, that's a bit odd. It's not a rude gesture, it's just like, oh, mum. It's like, oh, lady, why do you involve me? So it's not like a woman. Why are you involving me? So as it wasn't back chat to his mum, it's all right. He said, "Why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." So nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding about 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out," so get your wine glass, scoop some out, and take it to the master of the banquet. They did so. The master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink." That's probably a bit of a money-saving thing, I would like to think. But it says, "You've saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and the disciples believed in him. So, what a story, what a party that must have been. Lots of people there, lots of fun, and the very best wine saved till the end. And there's just a few things that, as I was reading this story, I feel that we can pull out that teach us some things about kindness. So I've got 3 things this morning that I think that we can apply to our own lives. So the first thing is about our decision. Okay, kindness is our decision. Like Jesus, we can decide to be kind.
Yeah.
You know, even though in that story there's a little pause from Jesus. He says, the mum says, "The wine's gone." There's a little pause, and he says, "Why are you involving me?" There's this little pause. Notice that Jesus, the Son of God, doesn't go, "Yeah, I'm the Son of God, I can sort it." He doesn't step in and go, "Okay." He just takes a little pause. He doesn't rush to show off what he can do, but he decides, out of kindness and honour to his mum, to recognise that his solution will be a blessing. And I want to say to us this morning that we need to be people who decide to respond in kindness in all things. In all things, we shouldn't hesitate when it comes to being kind. Jesus didn't worry about if he should or shouldn't perform the miracle in that moment. He saw the needs of the people in the party, and he decided to bless people. He just did something nice. The miracle didn't have an agenda. It wasn't like the healing miracles or the teachings that he'd done before, where it was all about demonstrating God's kingdom and God's power and God's love. This miracle, the first miracle of Jesus, was a response of kindness. And he was showing God's goodness and love to the people. Any Spider-Man fans in the house? Anybody seen the original original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man? Yeah. So there's the famous quote, isn't it? We watched this the other day, I was reminded of it. Yeah. There's, with great power comes great responsibility. There are other Spider-Mans out there, but just to cover do your BBC bit. But no, that one quote really stood out to me. And I was sort of thinking about that quote in line with this. With decision comes great responsibility. We all have the power to decide, don't we? We can decide, especially when it comes to being kind, how we're going to influence the world around us, the people around us. And I want to say, let's be people who choose kindness so that we can let them know Jesus. Being kind is never a bad thing. It builds up you and it impacts and influences and encourages the person on the receiving end. So be encouraged to step out and be kind. And God has placed us here to be kind, and He can give us everything we need, and He can show His love through that as well. The second thing is that we need to be deliberate in our kindness. Yeah. We need to be deliberate. Like Jesus, we need to be deliberately kind. He chose in that moment to do that action. He knew that there was a plan for His life, so we know that Jesus was fully human, and we know that He was also fully God. In His humanity, He had free will. He could have chosen to ignore what His mum said. He could have moved on and gone, I'm not doing anything, my time hasn't yet come. But He chose out of kindness to deliberately be kind and do something for others that would bless them. You know, everyone who was at that wedding received a blessing from this miracle. Mary was blessed in her security of knowing who her son was. She's like, no, talk to Jesus, He knows what to do. She at that moment will have experienced a blessing. The people who enjoyed the fine wine, they received a blessing. They're used to going from cheap wine, or from the best wine to the cheap wine, but this one was the opposite way around, wasn't it? It said, you've saved the best wine until now. They experienced the blessing. The disciples saw the first miracle. They were blessed in developing their faith. So Jesus knew that His time on earth had a specific purpose, but even in that, He didn't forget about people. He didn't forget about people, and you know, He wasn't simply driven by His calling. I've got this to do, and God's given me this mission. He wasn't so caught up in that He forgot about being kind in His natural human ability. And you know, if we get too caught up in our going our own way or thinking about ourselves all the time, we can forget about people, and we can forget our ability to be kind. So like Jesus, let's be kind. And I want to say it's more than just the surface kindness of the polite nod and all those sorts of things. You know, we can really show compassion to people by going beyond what is on the surface. You know, choosing to be kind to people maybe that we know a lot, or maybe people that we don't know very well. We need to consider, how would Jesus respond? Who would He sit with? Who would He talk to? Who would He help? You know, the miracles He went on to perform give some answers to those questions. We can look at Jesus and deliberately choose to bless people and be kind. Anybody like sweets? I've done the mints. Did the mints go around?
They all went, yeah.
Oh, did anybody not get a mint?
Yeah.
Oh, does anybody like no ones? Oh, okay, right. You can have them two. Right, you can have two. But there's a condition. You also can have 2 sweets, so there's like 5 in each pack, yeah? But you've got to share the rest. Okay, so you can take 2 for yourself, put them on your chair, and then just give us a wave if you want a sweet.
1 from each pack.
Anybody want a sweet? Yeah?
1 from each pack, or 2 from each pack is what
No, 2. So just 2 sweets. So you can have 1 from each if you want. But whilst just going round, just put your hands up. Yeah, so you save 2 for yourselves, and then you can just quietly go around and give them a sweet. Do you want to just help them open the packets, guys? So, Joseph will just come in at the right time. You give a little wave if you want sweets. So, Jesus. We can decide to be kind like Jesus. We need to be deliberately kind as well. And I want to say to us, thirdly, that we need to think about the direction of our kindness. We need to think about the direction. Through kindness, we can challenge the norm. Through kindness, we can challenge the way that things are. You know, firstly, I know we're handing the sweets around, but if we can just keep our attention towards the front, that'd be great. Firstly, we see through this miracle that Jesus doesn't take the praise for the miracle. Have you noticed that? He says that he called the bridegroom over and he says, everyone does this, but you have done this. Firstly, we see how the bridegroom received praise for this miracle. The servers, even in that story, they could have gone, oh, Jesus did it. Jesus did it. But they didn't. They kept that to themselves. Jesus didn't speak up. He didn't go, excuse me, it was me. I did it. He did it. And he let the bridegroom take the praise for the miracle. He didn't take off the spotlight. And that's quite challenging, isn't it? If you do something kind for someone, do you need people to know about it? That's quite a challenging question, isn't it? When you do something kind, who receives the praise? Is it you or is it God? Because kindness is a way that God works through us. And what I'm not saying is that we don't acknowledge kindness. So when my children are kind, so if Grace does something kind or if Josiah does something kind, I say, oh, that's great, well done. Well done. You know, we need to acknowledge where people do. How kind is that? Thank you, Josiah. That's really kind. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to turn it heavenwards. I'm going to say thank you, God, for blessing me with such a kind son. Because actually, that's what we need to do. When we show kindness, we need to acknowledge that we are kind because he was first kind to us. When we have the opportunity to be kind and gracious to people, do we give God the praise? You know, Jesus didn't need or expect the praise for his response to the shortage of wine, but he let the master praise the bridegroom. You know, Jesus didn't jump in with that look at me moment, but he chose to let the bridegroom take the praise. He didn't need validation from people. His quiet kindness resulted in the disciples learning of who Jesus is and believing in him, you know. It then takes us on nicely to this last little thing I want to bring to us this morning, that he said, the master in this little passage, he says, but you. That little phrase, but you, meant that the result of the water being turned into wine showed a different way. He went against the flow. He went against the norm. You know, through Jesus, the bridegroom did things the opposite way around. He went against the normal ways. He went against the habits that people had fallen into because the best wine had been brought out at the end. Jesus blessed people and he caused them to experience love and joy, and you know, we can do the same for other people too. You know, we can choose to be kind, we can be deliberately kind, and we can remember that our actions can point people in the direction of our Father in heaven. And you know, the more time we spend around each other, around Christians, around church, and you know, the more we spend time in God's presence, the more we will learn to be that kind of person like Jesus. You know, the kinder we will be, the more we'll hear God's voice. And do you know what? Sometimes it is difficult to be kind. Especially when you've got people maybe who you think, well, I'm not going to be kind to them because they did that to me. And then you keep the list of all the grievances. We don't do that. We don't want to encourage that. Sometimes it's difficult. But we're meant to show God's love, be God's hands and God's feet here on earth. And it doesn't always make sense, this action of being kind, but God really works. I believe that God works through those times to reveal something of himself to those who don't yet know him. And I think the way that Jesus went on to perform his miracles, they weren't always convenient. They weren't always what he had planned. You think about the woman who touched the hem of his cloak. He didn't plan that miracle. It happened on the way because he was always ready. He heard God's heart and he chose to do something to benefit and bless other people. So, who got sweet? Who didn't get sweet? Maybe one had one. There's a few hands gone out. Yeah, a few hands. So, not everyone received something, did they, from the mints or the sweet? So what we're going to do is we're going to use this illustration as a reminder. You'll be like, oh, well, I want to go to that church again. We get sweets, that's great. But I want to use that illustration reminder that there is no limit to God's love. There is no limit to God's kindness, to God's grace, to his mercy. It's not in short supply, not like my mints, which went down quite quick, not like the sweets which were handed out and shared and run out. You know, there's no limit to God's love and kindness. And as we choose to embrace being kind, because God is first kind to us, we have access to the one who has that unlimited supply. You know, whoever we're being kind to, we can turn to the one who has unlimited resources to change any situation. We can ask God today, where can I show your love, your grace, your mercy? Where can I be kind to someone today? And if we listen to God, we can show the kindness that's going to lead people in God's direction, and we're going to lead people to a place where they're going to be changed by God's power. I'm just going to invite the band up, because we're going to respond in a minute, and we're going to bring this into land. You know, the Bible tells us these words: love is kind. Love is kind. You know, we are called as Christians to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. We're called to preserve God's ways whilst we're here and living. We're meant to show things of God's kingdom. And kindness is one of the ways that we can do this. And the Bible talks about how we can use our skills, our giftings to serve others. It's not just about what we're comfortable with, but it's about using what we have to lead people to Jesus. And we heard earlier, kindness not only benefits others, but it says in Proverbs 11:17, a man who is kind benefits himself. Kindness is good for us too. So I would encourage us to be the kind people that God calls us to be, because there's real joy when we share what we know about Jesus, when we're kind in any way that we can be. When we're kind, things change and things get better.